Thank you for your coming back. Here are world headlines. Lebanon to mark 10th anniversary of Hariri assassination.
UN Security Council ups the pressure of Islamic State financing.
Lebanon to mark 10th anniversary of Hariri assassination. Lebanese political leaders and supporters of the March 14th movement are due to participate in a commemoration ceremony in Beirut on February 14th to mark 10 years since the assassination of influential former Prime Minister Rafik al-Hariri. On February 14, 2005, Hariri, along with 22 others, were killed in a massive explosion on Beirut's waterfront shortly after leaving a parliament session. The killing of Hariri threw Lebanon into a new phase of political turmoil and plunged the country into its worst political crisis since the end of the 1975 to 1990 civil war. Lebanese Member of Parliament and former Minister Marwan Hamadeh, a leading member of March 14th movement who survived an assassination attempt in 2014, told Reuters that he sees the assassination of Hariri as the first round of the global war going on in the Middle East today, and Lebanon went back years and years in the past 10 years. Abstaining him from the scene in this way predicted that what happened next, which is driving Lebanon to situations that aren't neither in its nature nor in its character or constitution, driving Lebanon to wars it didn't choose to fight, and put the Lebanese economy and social, financial, and economical life in Lebanon in a very dangerous cliff to the country, said Hamadi from his office at Al Nahar newspapers building, being a member of its board. The Lebanese army has fought regular battles with armed groups, including militants linked to Islamic State and the Al-Qaeda-affiliated Nusra Front in areas near the Syrian border, most recently late last month when 6 soldiers were killed. Hamadeh considered Hezbollah, which he said targeted Hariri along with Tehran and Damascus, has taken Lebanon into Syria. There was a crime against Hariri, but there is an ongoing crime against Lebanon, pronounced Hamadeh. Shiite Muslim group Hezbollah has sent thousands of fighters to support Syria's army in the conflict and has regularly clashed with Sunni Islamist groups like Nusra and Islamic State. It supports Syrian President Bashar al-Assad against a majority Sunni insurgency and angering its Lebanese political rivals who say it is dragging the small Mediterranean state into conflict 25 years after peace accords.
UN Security Council ups the pressure on Islamic State financing. The United Nations Security Council on Thursday banned all trade in antiquities from war-torn Syria, threatened sanctions on anyone buying oil from Islamic State and Al-Qaeda-linked Nusra Front militants, and urged states to stop kidnap ransom payments. The 15-nation council unanimously adopted a Russian-drafted resolution, which is legally binding and gives the council authority to enforce decisions with economic sanctions. It does not authorize using military force. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power, lamented that the council had not been able to show the same unity on attempting to bring an end to the 4-year civil war in Syria, blaming the conflict for the rise of Islamic State. Just as we condemn the monstrosities perpetuated by ISIL, we should also continue to condemn the brutality of Assad regime, which has long since lost the legitimacy to lead, Power told the council. She rejected claims that the United States needed to partner with the Syrian government to confront violent extremists. The United Nations Security Council has long been deadlocked on Syria, with Assad's ally Russia, backed by China, vetoing several resolutions on the Syrian conflict. We believe this is the type of case which clearly shows the need for the use of collective efforts to resolve issues we are facing, said Russian Ambassador Vitaly Churkin. The resolution on Thursday banned trade in Syria antiquities and reaffirmed a ban on Iraqi artifact sales from about a decade ago. It expressed concern that Islamic State and others are generating income from engaging directly or indirectly in the looting and smuggling of cultural heritage items, and to support their recruitment efforts and strengthen their operational capability to organize and carry out terrorist attacks. According to a UN report in November, it was very difficult to estimate how much money Islamic State was generating from the looting and trade in Syrian and Iraqi antiquities. The resolution builds on previous efforts to target Islamic State oil sales. It urges states to stop vehicles leaving or entering Islamic State and Nusra Front territory that could be smuggling oil, metals, grain, livestock, electronics, and cigarettes for international sale or to barter for weapons. After the vote, ambassadors from Iraq and Syria both applauded the council action, with Syrian Ambassador Bashar Jafari saying, "We are very pleased to see that the council has moved finally in the right direction towards establishing and settling a wider framework to combating terrorism and to guaranteeing full commitment of all member states towards achieving this very important goal."
Greece agrees to talk to creditors in EU debate progress. Greece agreed on Thursday to talk to its creditors about the way out of its hated international bailout and political climb down that could prevent its new leftist-led government running out of money as early as next month. Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras, attending his first European Union summit, agreed with the chairman of Eurozone finance ministries, Jean Dijsselbloem. The Greek officials would meet representatives of the European Commission, the European Central Bank, and the IMF on Friday. The 40-year-old leftist leader, who swept to power last month on a wave of anti-austerity protests, told reporters that discussions and Thursday's developments signaled the intention for political agreement. He reiterated his statement concerning the meeting that took place in the morning today. "This is a statement that is for us to step towards the right direction in order to continue negotiation talks till Monday, till the next meeting of the Euro group, and in constructive way we expect these negotiations will go on so that a mutually acceptable agreement solution could be found," Tsipras said. The shift by Tsipras marked a potential first step towards resolving a crisis that had raised the risk of Greece, where the bloc's debt crisis began in 2009, being forced to abandon the euro, sparking wider financial turmoil. Tsipras also said his goal was a transition to a new financing program and that it will be the main issue of the next Eurogroup meeting. The Greek delegation will take part in these meetings with crystal clear proposals. "We will try to convince our partners about our proposal and no blackmail. We will try to convince our partners about our proposal," he said. Dijsselbloem was cautious about prospects for a deal, telling reporters, "I'm optimistic that we will have an outcome on the technical process because I think that's simply a matter of comparing the different measures and content of the programs. I'm very cautious on the political side. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to take time, and don't get your hopes up yet." On Wednesday night, Eurozone finance ministries had failed to argue even on a statement on the next procedural steps because Athens did not want any reference to the unpopular bailout nor to the despised troika of lenders enforcing it. Though he will be negotiating with the EU, ECB, and IMF, Tsipras said the troika no longer existed. He won election promising to scrap the 240 billion euro bailout and cooperation with the troika, reverse austerity measures that have cast many Greeks into poverty, and negotiate a reduction in the country's huge debt burden.
Tusk says EU ready for more Russian sanctions if needed. European Council President Donald Tusk said EU leaders who met at a summit on Thursday were ready to take further measures against Russia if necessary to pressure Moscow to stick to a peace agreement with Ukraine struck in Minsk, Belarus. But in this very difficult moment, we presented that we are united and we are ready to act if, and also with new measures if it is necessary. Tusk said Speaking at a Brussels news conference after the German and French leaders struck a peace accord with Russia in Minsk, Tusk said the EU summit did not discuss new sanctions. German Chancellor Angela Merkel, however, said the leaders asked officials to study possible further measures to take if needed. We didn't discuss any new sanctions, but we didn't decide also about postponing the sanctions, which were decided during the last Foreign Affairs Council. It means that we are sure that our pressure will or can encourage Russia to implement the second Minsk agreement. It's our hope, Tusk said. Speaking at the same news conference, European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker said the European Union will relaunch trilateral talks with Kiev and Moscow on supplies of Russian gas to Ukraine following Thursday's peace accord with Russia over Ukraine. We are going to resume negotiations, the trilateral talks, with regards to energy so that during the 2015 winter, we won't have to witness the same problems we encountered during the previous years. So these talks, these negotiations will be resumed immediately. Juncker also said to the EU would launch a study of how the free trade relationship between the bloc and Ukraine, which was at the root of the confrontation with Moscow, could interact with the Russian-led Eurasian Union free trade area.
France's Hollandaise says Egypt to order 24 Rafale jets and frigate. French President Francois Hollande said on Thursday that Egypt would order 24 Rafale fighter jets, a naval frigate, and related military equipment in a deal to be signed in Cairo on Monday worth about 5 billion euros. The contract would make Egypt aiming to upgrade its military hardware aimed fears the crisis in neighboring Libya could spill over. The first export customer for the warplane, built by Dassault Aviation. It follows years of failed attempts by France to export the plane. It is indeed the first export contract for the Rafale. Until now, the French state was the only buyer. But we were very happy with them, so happy that we wanted to share this happiness with others. But the French state has faced a number of difficulties not only in the last 2.5 years, but for many years. And a number of promises did not come through, Hollande said at a news conference in Brussels after a summit of EU leaders. The contract would be the first overseas for the Rafale 14 years after it entered service and 3 years after Dassault Aviation entered exclusive negotiations to sell 126 of the combat jets to India. Hollande said the French government had made efforts on financing. Nonetheless, there was a major issue left, that of price and financing. As far as the price is concerned, it is for the industrials to negotiate. But regarding financing, the government made a number of efforts. Why did we do these efforts? Not only to sell Rafales, but also because I consider that in the current circumstances, it is very important to allow Egypt to contribute to stability and to be safe, he said. Delays in finalizing the Indian contract are expected to be discussed at a major Indian air show starting on February 18th. Dassault is also in negotiations to supply the Rafale to Qatar and under increasing pressure to sell the plane overseas. Paris and Cairo have enjoyed close economic ties in the past, but turmoil in the North African state since President Hosni Mubarak was overthrown in 2011 left Western governments wary of signing deals, especially in defense. Regarding a deal in Minsk between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko, negotiated along with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Hollande said he hoped all parties would respect it, but that further sanctions would be applied in case the ceasefire did not hold. The EU has already imposed sanctions on Russia and pro-Russian separatists in Crimea and eastern Ukraine, including visa bans and asset freezes on individuals, as well as curbs in access to European capital markets, weapons, and technology.
Rio readies for Carnival. Things were heating up in Rio de Janeiro on Thursday as the city rolled out final preparations on the eve of the start of Carnival celebrations here. The city has already ramped up security on the streets as it expects an influx of close to 1 million tourists to flood the beachside city during the annual 5 days of festivities. The state of Rio de Janeiro will be deploying 15,500 officers and 3,332 patrol cars and other vehicles to ensure the pre-Lenten festival goes off without a hitch. So we will be able to respond to every call in all corners of the state of Rio de Janeiro, so everyone can have a safe carnival and spend these 5 days in peace and truly offer good service to everyone from Rio de Janeiro and so domestic, and that foreign tourists are welcomed here in Rio de Janeiro. The state's military police commander, Colonel Lima Ferrer, said during a news conference on Thursday. The police also announced Project Carnival with Rights, which will focus resources on carnival events popular among lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender crowds to protect those populations against the possibility of homophobic attacks. City workers put the finishing touches on the city's famed Samba Drum parade route, which the flashy Samba skulls will compete in the annual parade competition. The street of the parade route had a fresh coat of paint and crews cleaned up strands that run along the course as well as upper box seats. A painter working here said he has been working long hours in the run-up to the start of Carnival. Yes, I'm even working overtime since 6 in the morning. The painter Nivaldo dos Santos Lima said, "The parade competition is one of Rio's most recognizable cultural activities with its massive floats, feathered headdresses, skimpy costumes, and the distinguished beat of the samba drums that lead the performers through massive cheering. Crowds, samba, skulls in Rio work all year round, pulling out all stops ahead of the frenetic festivities. Their budgets can run into the millions of dollars, and they employ a workforce of thousands of people from designers, artists, dancers, and percussionists, to name a few." Fans of the Unidos de Villa Isabel Samba School lined up outside the school headquarters on Thursday to pick up the colorful costumes that they have done when they march with their school down the Samba Badrón. One fan, Ana Galguisca de Silva Xavier, said she marches with Villa Isabel every year. Excited fans filled out of the headquarters with the costumes they will wear when their school takes the main stage on Sunday. The year's king of Rio de Janeiro Carnival, known as King Momo, who hails from the Villa Isabel neighborhood, was also on hand outside the school. He called on all who have been to Rio for Carnival to come out. King Momo will officially open Carnival on Friday the 13th when he receives the key to the city from Mayor Eduardo Paes and declares the festival open for all. The festivities will run Tuesday through Tuesday, February 17th, and officially end with the start of Ash Wednesday on February 18th.
Julius Malema party members clashed with officials in South Africa Parliament. South African President Jacob Zuma received a hostile reception when he opened Parliament on Thursday as secretary officers fought with far-left economic freedom fighters, lawmakers after they disputed Zuma's speech. Zuma's first State of the Nation address since winning an election last May had been billed as an opportunity for him to highlight the achievements of the ruling African National Congress and its plans for the year ahead. However, EFF lawmakers led by firebrand former ANC youth leader Julius Malema used the event as an opportunity to prepare Zuma with questions about investigation into a $23 million state-funded security upgrade to his home. Malema and Speaker of Parliament Balika Meat were involved in a heated exchange of words. Speaker Meat ordered EFF members not to ask any more questions before ordering they removed by security officers, prompting a brief brawl in which several people were injured, witnesses said. Lawmakers from the main opposition Democratic Alliance then walked out of the chamber after calling the removal of EFF members unconstitutional. Mail Ma struck a defiant note outside Parliament. We are going to continue holding this executive accountable. We are going to be part of this parliament. We not going anywhere. We will continue to raise our issues without fear or favor. When we were scuffling with them, they asked us outside not to fight back because they are police, and fighting them back will mean fighting a law enforcement officer. That's how we came to an understanding and walked away, he said, adding that 7 EFF members were injured in the brawl. South Africa's usually calm parliament has been shaken up since the EFF won 25 seats in May's election. Its members wear red overalls and hard hats in the chamber in a symbol of their apparent close ties to the working classes.
Former Guantanamo inmate asked Argentina to accept prisoners. A former inmate of the U.S. prison in Guantanamo Bay traveled from his new home in Uruguay to neighboring Argentina this week on a mission to lobby the government to provide refuge to inmates still imprisoned in Cuba. Jihad Ahmad Dijab, one of 6 detainees released in December and resettled in the tiny South American country of Uruguay, told media he had come on behalf of prisoners who remain at the U.S. base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. While jailed, Dijab mounted a legal challenge against the U.S. military's force-feeding of hunger strikes at Guantanamo. Dijab called on Argentina to save the inmates from daily torment at Guantanamo. The prisoners in Guantanamo suffer a lot. They're not allowed to sleep. Special forces enter their rooms day and night, and some weigh just 30 kilos. Without the mercy of God, surely they'd be dead, because 30 kilos is nothing of a person. I am aware of this. They fight with hunger strikes, and this is why I ask governments to take in more people, more prisoners from Guantanamo, so as to save them, at least in a humanitarian way, the Syrian national said. He and 5 other former Guantanamo prisoners were flown from Uruguay in early December. The Uruguayan government said the 6 would be treated as totally free men, but Dijab admitted his status in the South American country was not clear. From here, I want to thank the government and the people of Uruguay who have received us very well, but I want to say that I have ignored my situation in Uruguay. Am I a resident or a refugee? This is not clear. We talked about responsibility, and this is not very clear, he said. The former Guantanamo inmate did not confirm if he would be meeting government ministers while in Argentina, but echoed his appeal to the country. I asked the Argentine government to receive in a humanitarian way the prisoners from Guantanamo. Heated President Barack Obama's administration has sped up transfer of Guantanamo detainees in recent months, but efforts to shut the prison have been blocked by lawmakers who think the inmates pose a threat, defending his religion. The devout Muslim said Islam was a religion of peace. Obama promised to shut the detention facility used to imprison people captured after the September 11, 2001 attacks on the United States when he first took office 6 years ago. Following are today's weather forecast and New York Exchange.
And again, thank you very much for your watching. Have a great day. Bye.